It's Monday and time for the Back to Business podcast, featuring Calgary's industry leaders. Welcome today's show host, Kim Hayden.
Virginia Woolf had a famous quote, "One cannot think well, love well, or sleep well if one has not dined well." Today we have guest, President and CEO of the Calgary Food Bank, Melissa Fromm. And we're going to be learning not only how we can further support our community and those in it that are needing a little bit of help these days, because we know that food scarcity is a very real thing, but also what can we do to further support the food bank and what are they looking for? But first, our land acknowledgement.
In the spirit of reconciliation, we acknowledge that we live, work, and play on the traditional territories of the Blackfoot Confederacy, Siksika, Ga'aina, Piikani, the Tsuut'ina, the Eahe Nakota Nations, the Métis Nation Region 3, and all people who make their homes in the Treaty 7 region of southern Alberta.
Welcome to the show, Melissa.
Thanks for having me.
I am super excited to have you here. I know your predecessor, James, hung out with him lots, did a lot of work with the food bank. A fresh face is going to give us a new perspective. So before we dive into the meat of the conversation, I'd love for you to give us a little bit of backstory as to who is Melissa and how did you end up at the Calgary Food Bank?
Sure. Melissa Fromm, 20 years in the nonprofit sector. This is my third gig, so to speak, in the sector. I've had a really unique career path in the nonprofit space. Coming out of the for-profit sector, I found myself in a startup nonprofit, which is very rare in the nonprofit world today. And so I actually got to start a nonprofit from the very beginning, $0 in the bank, had to do the incorporation, the CRA registry, the whole 9 yards, and grew that organization. It was called International Justice Mission. Myself and just one or two other staff members growing that organization from nothing to, I think today it's like a $10 or a $12 million a year organization, serving individuals in countries around the world, rescuing victims of slavery and forced prostitution and child prostitution. And then my husband and I relocated across the country to be closer to family and landed here in Calgary. And at that point, then I had just been bitten by the nonprofit bug. I mean, if you can make a living helping people, like why would you do anything else? And so was seeking opportunities in the city of Calgary for where I could do that again and where I could serve the community and build a career, and found myself at an amazing little organization called Junior Achievement, where I started out leading up the fund development department and growing that organization there, and then moved into the CEO role where I spent the last 7 years of my career. So running Junior Achievement in the Alberta Business Hall of Fame and teaching entrepreneurship and financial literacy and recognizing business excellence in our community. And after almost 14 years with that organization, just came to a point where I was ready for my next challenge. I was starting to kind of kick the tires on other opportunities in the community. And I saw the announcement in October of 2022 of James's retirement from the Calgary Food Bank. And I just, that was it.
And being the entrepreneur, the business person you are, you go, ooh,
that's the one I want.
It's better than watching the obituaries. I mean, we've seen those on the sitcoms where people look at the obituaries to figure out what houses need to be sold.
Oh my gosh.
But that's, I mean, and like so when you came in, James's big shoes to fill because he really spearheaded, because I remember when Calgary Food Bank was the, what was it named before?
Interfaith Food Bank, Calgary Interfaith Food Bank. Yeah.
And so one of the things I think people don't know about the food bank is that you guys not only collect food to serve Calgarians, but you guys also fill the shelves of how many other distribution points in and around Calgary. Because, I mean, that's one of the things that I think people were surprised to hear, that you guys also help feed outlying communities.
I think even for me, I'm a little over a year on the job now, and I think that was something that surprised me when I started at the Calgary Food Bank, and maybe I didn't do my homework, but we're distributing 650 to 700 emergency food hampers a day. So that's those households, the family just can't make ends meet. They come in, they get 10 days worth of groceries, and that goes out the door. And when I started at the Calgary Food Bank, that number was actually between 400 and 450. So that just speaks to just the explosion of need in our community right now. But in addition to that, we have nearly 100 other community partners and agencies that we're working with. And so we have a number of satellite locations in the city, whether it's the Genesis Center or Center Street Church, or other nonprofits or community centers that we'll take a couple hampers to every week, 20 hampers, 30 hampers, sometimes as many as 50, and they'll distribute those hampers to clients and community members in their own neighborhood. So they're not having to hike all the way down where the Calgary Food Bank is in the southeast. We also, if there is a charity in this city that is feeding people, they're probably getting food from us, the Mustard Seed, the Dream Center, the Alex, the Salvation Army. And we are able to provide them with food so that they can allocate their resources to their primary mission. They don't have to sit across the table from somebody and think, I wonder if this person's eaten today. I wonder if they're hungry. They know we fed this person, and now we can talk about substance abuse. We can talk about domestic violence. We can talk about housing. We can talk about mental health, and not have to wonder if that primary human need of food has been met.
Was it Virginia Woolf that had a quote, and I'm going to get this completely wrong, but it was always one of my favorite quotes. It was around, one cannot sleep well, live well, or love well if one has not eaten well. And I probably have that completely wrong, folks, but I had it on a plaque in my dining room because I've always been about food. I grew up with food scarcity. My mother got food stamps, worked 2 full jobs. Wow. Yeah, so I understand.
You get it.
Yeah. Oh, I get it.
I get it.
Mom would take the food stamps in the car. That was like, we had the worst car ever. And I mean, I don't think it was legal to be on the road. And we would drive across Wichita to go to a grocery store that nobody knew us, right? Because of the shame around the food stamps.
Yeah.
And she'd get 1 box of sugar cereal. Well, you ain't seen nothing like the Hunger Games. Like, it was like my sisters and I, 1 box of those Tricks or Fruity Pebbles or honeycombs comes into the house, and it is like locusts. 14 girls.
Oh,
and it never made it to a bowl. No. Never made it to a bowl.
It was into it. Yeah. But at the Calgary Food Bank, like, one of the things that, what I will say too was a surprise to me, because I have my own kids, and we do the hockey team food drives, and you'll see, especially around Stampede, you'll see the boxes everywhere.
Yes.
We're getting Itchy Bad noodles and macaroni and Cheerios and everything. And that is great. Do not get me wrong. But when you come to the Calgary Food Bank, the hamper that you walk away with is 30% fresh produce, 28% fresh protein. You're getting milk, you're getting eggs, and then that other stuff is the extra. Just like when you go to the grocery store. I'm sure when you go to the grocery store, you're not putting 8 boxes of cereal and 1 tomato, right? Like, you're shopping the outside, you're getting the healthy stuff, and then you get a few of the extras.
Exactly. And the reality is that the chips and all of that is last on my list, because I'm just like everybody else. I mean, right now we're dealing with soaring food prices. I mean, for example, pre-COVID, you could buy the vegetable oil.
Yep.
That for, I think it was like $2.99.
Yeah.
Post-COVID, $5.99, $8.99.
It's insane.
And I'm sitting here going, I don't recall all this. Like, did we just cut all the farms? Like, what has changed?
It's just inflation.
Right?
Like,
it's just inflation.
Yeah, it's wild. And I mean, I have a 14-and-a-half-year-old son that I'm feeding.
Oh.
So
it's basically 3 people.
It's getting really rough at the farmhouse.
Yeah, absolutely. I have 2 sons, and they were both 6'4".
Oh my gosh!
At their completion rate,
you
and
just can't keep the food in them. And then you think of a household like that facing food insecurity, and what are they to do?
Well, and I think there's a lot of challenges around. A lot of people don't know how to cook now.
Yeah.
That's a big one.
Yeah.
That's a big one. All my kids know how to cook. I taught them all how to cook. They know how to make 1 pound of ground chuck stretch if need be.
If they have to.
Right?
Yeah.
How do you make this stretch?
Yeah.
And yet I see a lot of people who don't know how to cook.
Interesting.
I see a lot of women, even women my age, that just don't know how to cook, right? Can't boil water. And the reality is, eating at home is the most cost-effective thing you can do.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. And eating whole ingredients is the healthiest thing we can do. And we talk about nourishing our bodies so that we can thrive and do well. If it's coming from a box and it's sort of a pour and mix, you're probably not getting the best nutritional value that your body needs.
Well, and you don't know what's in it.
Yeah.
Right. And you can go online. Like I've got, Hamburger Helper, right? You can go online and you can actually Google how to make Hamburger Helper and you can actually make beef stroganoff. Yeah. Right. But you know what's gone into it and it's not a powder.
Yeah. The way our grandmas probably used to make
exactly.
it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
My grandma, I'm a meatloaf queen. Meatloaf queen. I can, so when we look at this, we know that we're in food scarcity. I think we had what was it? Calgary for kids.
Brown bagging for kids.
Brown bagging for Calgary kids.
Yeah.
Yes, we had them in, and their numbers have gone right through the roof.
I'm
Basically
sure.
doubled in the last 6 years.
Yeah.
As to what they're distributing, just to keep these kids fed at school.
Yeah.
What are some of the? How do we know when somebody's in distress? Can you tell when somebody's in distress, or is this really being hidden behind closed doors? Is it more like my mom, where she will drive across the city because of the shame?
Probably a bit of both. There are some situations where it's glaringly obvious, and there are others where you would never know. And the reality is, we have folks from all walks of life, all cultures, all religions, coming to the Calgary Food Bank. There is not a neighborhood in our city that there isn't somebody coming to the Calgary Food Bank. And the reality is, even in some of our more, what we would think would be more affluent or well-off neighborhoods, look, last week we had great news that we had that interest rate reduction from the Bank of Canada. But the reality is, we're still looking at 4.5% and 5.5% mortgages for folks who 3.5, 4 years ago had a 1.5% mortgage. And if you have already stretched your budget in your household to afford that house, and you're now renewing your mortgage at 3.5% more than your original mortgage rate, where is that coming from? And then throw on top of that what you said about how much your grocery prices essentially doubled. We've thrown carbon tax onto our fuel costs, and our fuel costs have gone up. Our heating costs have gone up. So we've got it's not even just one facet of our budget. It's every single budget line has had those increases. And if you're already teetering on the edge, you've fallen over. You're done. You can't make it.
Yeah. No, I've seen this firsthand. I remember back in 2008 when we saw the huge crunch and a lot of people lost their homes and it was everywhere. And it's like the people, you're sitting here going, well, how'd you get in that position? Well, sometimes there's no control, right? And I just want to say that if you got to do what you got to do to ensure your family is fed.
That's right.
At the end of the day, you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, as somebody who grew up with food scarcity, I remember making the tuna casserole go for an entire week. But I also remember sitting around the dinner table with my mom in that little itty bitty crappy kitchenette table we had with my sisters. And I remember the connection we had as a family. So I would say that if you're in a food scarcity space, if you can add in, a dinner time ritual of some sort, or maybe it's breakfast. Maybe it's breakfast is the only meal that you guys can get together because you're working 2 jobs, like my mom did, but find ways to celebrate it less about what the food is and more about the opportunity. Is that a fair thing to say?
I'm a big believer, good things happen when we break bread together. And whether it's as a family, whether it's as a community, gathering over food is something that I think happens in every culture and in every walk of life. And as hard as it is for folks, and think back to your story and driving 2 counties over or whatever to get those food stamps, or to collect on those food stamps because you didn't want people to see you. The Calgary Food Bank was started. We were one of the first food banks in the country. Edmonton was actually first.
Really?
In 1982. And we were started by community for community. So different faith leaders and community leaders came together. This is when we were looking at like 18% mortgages. So like we're looking at 5% and freaking out. Imagine 18%, right? People are just like walking away from their homes and leaving the keys. And the community banded together and said, we're going to fill this need. We are going to hold each other up and make sure this basic human need is met. And that same founding principle is what guides us today. We get almost no government support. I'm okay with that. Yeah. We are by community for community. And no one should ever question whether or not they qualify or, oh, maybe somebody else needs it more. If you think you need it, you need it. Come to the food bank and let us help you.
The food bank, is there other organizations that the food bank works with or has pamphlets for or anything like that? Like you had mentioned that you had worked with the junior achievers and in financial literacy. When we go to the food bank, is there an option of asking for direction in different ways?
Absolutely.
Or what other resources could you direct people to?
You know, our community, and I've worked in the nonprofit sector in different communities, and Calgary especially is just so unique in the way that we collaborate as a sector and the way that our community supports us as a sector. And so for sure, when folks come to the Calgary Food Bank, if they are not already connected with other supports, we do our best to advise them on what other opportunities might be there for them for support. But also conversely, a number of our clients come to us because they're working with other charities and agencies and supports in the community who are saying, you know what? I think you should go to the Calgary Food Bank.
Yeah, that's and there's something food, shelter, education, medication,
Basics.
and access to information. These are the 5 pillars of human dignity, right? Mm-hmm. And being able to find ways to support. So collaboration. You actually just led into the next. Beautiful job.
Good segue. I'm glad.
Great segue,
We
Melissa.
practically planned this.
So let's talk collaboration. So we have Stampede coming up.
Yeah.
But not just Stampede, folks. There is an event going on in this city every bloody month, right?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And then there is, what are we? We're like over 90% small business now. Right. So we have a huge small business backbone to this city. Yeah. So when I think collaboration, I think opportunity.
Absolutely.
I think opportunity, right?
Yeah.
Let's talk about how people can collaborate and what are some of the more unique things that you have seen where you've seen boxes come back and go, well, that was kind of cool.
Right. You know, one of the things I love about the Calgary Food Bank is the way that our community supports us. And so every year during Stampede, we do our Put the Boots to Hunger campaign. And that is just basically whoever you are and whatever you do in this city, if you're doing something during Stampede, just take a minute and think about how you might be able to use that event, that party, that celebration to serve the community. And we can supply you with donation boxes. We can supply you with QR codes for tap donations, the whole 9 yards. And there will be so much that happens. Last year, I think I went to 42 events in 7 days.
Ooh, call me. Call me. I'll go with you.
Like I just about wore a hole in the bottom of those boots, I tell you. So there's no shortage. And I can't even think, like some of the fun stuff that happens at Christmas. Chance Vagan, who was actually the winner of the Chucks last year, parked his chuck wagon at Grey Eagle Casino, filled it up, and then drove it to the Calgary Food Bank, which was really fun, but it was too cold for the horses. So in a couple of weeks, the week before Stampede, he's going to do it again, but he's going to bring it by horse to the Calgary Food Bank, which I just think like does it get any more Calgarian than that? Like serving the community, giving back, and horses. So
absolutely.
It's all the things. And there's just no shortage of examples like that, whether it's the small child. It was my second day of work and the office was basically cleared out and everyone had gone home for the day and the doorbell rang and I went and answered the doorbell and it was this family with this little boy and for his 10th birthday, he had forgone birthday gifts and brought in this donation that all of his friends had given money to the Calgary Food Bank. And, it's little things like that that go such a long way too. And it's teaching our kids philanthropy. It's teaching them to give back, to support community.
Absolutely.
It's everything, whether it's the widow with her 2 pence or the wealthy businessman with his $1 million donation. It all has the same meaning.
Amazing. So when we talk about 2 pence, the buying power.
Yeah.
So when we think about the food bank, $1 goes like twice as far through the affiliations of the food bank than it does if we go and spend $1 at the grocery store. Is that
It does.
correct?
For every dollar that you donate to the Calgary Food Bank, we can distribute $3.50 in food. So we have significant abilities to get a return on investment of those donations that you can't necessarily get. We have warehouse pricing and bulk buy pricing, and then also just amazing corporate partnerships where we get big donations. It's not just those little food drive donations. We have things like General Mills pulling up with a truckload of cereal instead of a couple boxes of cereal in a food donation bin. And all of that goes a long way. And so, those donations of funds are really important to us.
Having been in real estate, one of the things that we did every year was the parade of garage sales, and how our parade of garage sales worked. And agents do this all the time, and we all know why they do this. Yeah. They're filling their database with people who live in the neighborhood, right? So great, there's no problem with that. And if you have a problem with that, don't call me. But what we did is we made it circular. So we, instead of you giving us your information and we give you a garage sale kit, what we did was you sign up and give us food for the food bank, and then we give you this $5 garage sale kit. Yeah. And over the course of 20 years, we raised a ton of food, but nothing was cooler than watching the children come up with a bag of food. The pride that you see, and what a gift to give back to your community. Yeah. So if you are, in real estate, mortgages, I don't know, State Farm insurance, anything. If you are doing something this summer to serve your community, to serve your past clients,
think about the food bank.
Think about the food bank, because people feel good sharing this. Oh, and folks, please do look at the expiry cans. Do not grab the 4-year out-of-date lima beans in the back of your closet. You didn't want to eat them. Nobody else is going to eat them.
Thank you.
Yeah. There's a PSA. I got you.
Well, and the other thing is, I'm learning more and more because I'm from the nonprofit sector, not from the warehousing sector. Yeah. But space is money. Mm-hmm. And so if we are housing your expired whatever in a big bin in our warehouse, that's space that eventually we're going to sort through that bin and throw that in the garbage, and we're going to have to pay waste. So it's going to cost us money to get rid of it. And it just took up valuable real estate.
Well, exactly. And you know what? It's appreciate the fact that you did dig to the back of your pantry, but let's just leave those lima beans. You can get rid of those. How can people, are you guys looking for volunteers? Because you guys are 100% volunteer driven. Am I correct on that? On the floor?
In our distribution center, I would say our makeup right now, organization wide, so across the whole organization, is almost 50-50.
Okay.
So we have about 100 staff, and I think we have the equivalent of between 75 and 80 full-time employees in our volunteer pool. We have 160 volunteers every single day on site at the Calgary Food Bank.
And are you looking for any volunteers at this point in time?
Right now we actually have a volunteer wait list.
Oh, awesome. That's good, though.
That's not to say that we won't need volunteers as we get into the fall months. We have a lot more food sorting that we need to do. We have that citywide food drive and Stuff a Bus and the mayor's food drive. So we get into those fall months. That's when we really need all hands on deck at the Calgary Food Bank.
Absolutely. So if you're out there, and if you are somebody who is struggling finding, especially a young professional who's struggling finding that next opportunity, I will tell you, and folks, there is a reality here. Giving of your time in a documented, well-respected space like the Calgary Food Bank looks amazing on your resume. It is a great thing to learn how to serve, because then when you get the opportunity of that great job, Now you can say, by the way, when I was in between, I volunteered and here's my time, right? So, and we are here at the Calgary Petroleum Club. We are a business club. So there is a business to all of this. I'm going to challenge every business that is doing something for the Stampede. If you don't already have a food box, put a food box up.
Yeah.
I'm going to challenge everybody who is doing these picnics in the park and the past client get-togethers. You know what? Give people the opportunity to support others through donating to the Calgary Food Bank. Let's talk about the most overlooked but really needed donations.
Yeah. So, of course, we've talked about money already and just how far that dollar can go. But if you are doing those food drives, if you're thinking about how you can give back as a family and going through your pantry, some of those items that we really need, the canned fruits and vegetables and canned proteins go a long way because, again, we're really wanting to provide people with nutritious food and a balanced diet. And then the last thing I would say is I'm a mom, you're a mom. We need to make sure we're taking care of those littlest Calgarians. And so baby cereal and formula are incredibly costly items right now for folks who are struggling to make ends meet. And so those are some of our highest need items, the baby cereal and baby formula.
And I'll tell you, there are people who are stretching what goes in that bottle.
Yeah.
And I remember when I was like 20 years of age, there was a gal, I was in a position where I needed help as a young single mom. And there was a gal that I knew that was putting Kool-Aid in the bottle. And at 3 years of age, that child had rickets. Who has rickets nowadays?
Wow.
So we don't need this. We remember, these kids cannot perform well and they cannot move through these financial challenges that maybe are due to either A, new to a country, trying to figure out what's going on. B, maybe that person, and think about this, folks, we don't know the stories that are going on behind closed doors.
That's right.
We don't know the traumas and the challenges that adult is facing on a daily basis. Yeah. So I would just say, let's all be a little bit more grateful and gracious to everyone around us. And if you have an opportunity, if you're throwing a party, make it even if you only get one little box of food, that's still such a cool thing to do. Yep. So have a barbecue. I'm telling you, if you are an independent business person out there, like myself with real estate in my past, I challenge you to use your incredible networking and connectivity and marketing to go that one step further. Just go one step further. It's not a lot more work, but boy, it sure makes a huge difference. Yeah. Melissa, any closing words that you want to share to the Calgarians and the business people out there around the food bank? And we talked about what we're missing. What if it's not cash, think protein, think baby items. That right now, get on the list for this fall to help out. I do love the Stuff a Bus the city does. That is so fun. What else can we do, or is there anything we have not discussed at this point in time?
The other thing, again, coming back to just being such a small business community, is any type of tap and collect at the cash register. There's lots of sort of those point of sale top-ups that we can do as well when folks are making a small purchase at a small business. And at the Calgary Food Bank, we are just, again, so incredibly fortunate that we were started by community for community. 42 years later, it is our community that truly allows us to do the work we do. Calgary is a very growing and changing city, and we are working hard to make sure that we can grow and change and continue to meet that demand, and we just need our community to support us in doing that.
Thank you, Melissa. This is amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today on the Back to Business podcast. Be sure to visit calpeteclub.com, calpeteclub.com, to find out more about upcoming events, networking opportunities, and membership. If you are not already a valued member at the CPC, where we are proudly connecting and supporting Calgary's business leaders.